Everybody getting it?
Yeah, not really any questions. It's definitely pretty crazy though. Like all the different ways you can wrap it too.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a nice Kickstarter, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, there's probably a running theme here where almost everything that we're looking at is kind of a Kickstarter, right? So we're not looking to get the tools to do everything for us. We're looking for them to sort of get us a little further down the road. Does that make sense?
definitely.
Because what people a lot of times they want to do is they want to get tricks that are going to do all this stuff for them. And I don't even understand that concept. It's like if you just want the computer to do everything for you, why even bother? You know what I mean? You're not putting in your own thinking into it, so it just
Definitely.
doesn't make sense to me. But these things are great again to get us further down the road, get us done a little faster. You know, because speed in the real world matters. Okay. Although I don't like making everything about speed. When you're learning right now, speed will happen later. Just get your skills down, and the speed will happen later. Where's John at? Is John here? Yeah, there he is. This castle idea was cool, John.
Thanks. I tried to make a 3D map of a little town or something and see what would happen. It was kind of fun. Came out kind of Minecrafty.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like, and and then you could just start painting into it and over it, and all that kind of stuff, reshaping things.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's again, it just the thing I also like about it is I can adjust my view before I go in. It's just like when I at Imagineering, if SketchUp had been around, Google SketchUp, there's a lot of things I would have used that for because it's a very simple 3D program. It's not for somebody who needs Maya or whatever, but like for what I was doing for when you're taking in like an doing like an orthographic view or whatever of a room, I could have just built the basic geometry in probably an hour in SketchUp and just went, there's the desks and they could just be cubes. There's the ceiling, there's this, there's the floor plan, there's that. And then I could have just taken that into Photoshop and just started doing my rendering and my painting over it and just basically doing everything from scratch over that. But I'd know that everything was to scale. Does that make sense? You there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that seems really cool. Seems like a quick way to get that kind of stuff set up.
Yeah, and then the cool thing about this too is that like if you get it like that, then you can really decide like what view do I want before I go in and start, finishing it out and rendering it and changing it and all that kind of stuff. Make sense?
Yeah. I did have a little disconnect at first when I was doing like the castle because it cut off at the edges and it's like, well, what do I do with the remaining space? But once you start playing, it seems pretty fun and intuitive. You just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, that's what's kind of cool about it. A lot of times I just take this same stuff and I might blow this up and I'll throw it behind it and I just build a real quick scene.
Can't see
Can we share the screen, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I always do this. It's Elan's fault, not mine. Okay.
Oh, that looks cool.
Yeah, it's cool, right? So you can see the potential where you could go with that, right? In this one,
yeah, it was fun to.
Elan went with this cave idea, which is cool. Did you just flip the top, Elan?
Thank you. I actually made another topographical map or like depth map, and then I flipped vertical it. Yeah, and I did that. There was some. Yeah, I guess I did do one flip vertical, and then I did a couple, like new ones to kind of cover it so it doesn't look like it's repeating, and also transformed it as well. So
now I want to do this thing we talked about. Hang on. Okay. Let's take this. Why my lighting is so weird in this thing. You guys didn't have any trouble with lighting, right?
Mine
No.
did the same thing, but if you actually put a texture on it, it appears a lot better. The shadows aren't so harsh.
I notice if you turn off those two windows, then it usually works pretty good.
Yeah, that too. But if you can
Mhm.
even leave the cast shadows on, like that.
What's weird though is I've never had that problem before, so I got to find out what it is. Could be something in 2020 they changed. Who
Yeah,
knows?
maybe.
So let's take this now. I'm going to go to my layer, rasterize 3D. Or maybe it comes out of the water.
Yeah.
Oops. And I have to give it your color. I won't worry about that yet. Gosh dang it. We do two things here. You probably just put that behind it. Make a layer mask. Put this on black and white. Put it in the water a little bit. And then up here, I'd probably, I don't know how I would do it, but I might go, let's light that up a little bit. Maybe I just smudge it. I don't know how I would do this. Let's see. Let's try. No. Might be a little too blendy, so I'd probably just take a brush. Try and keep some, what do you call it? Some texture on it. Have to go back and forth a little bit.
Hmm.
You know, because they usually kind of curve into the top,
Yeah.
or at least it looks cool when they curve into the top. You know, so then I could just take it and paint it in. I'd have to add some dark, some different things to it. Right?
Yeah.
And then I could go, I could start to put lighting in this thing. Let's see, this is probably way too much. Hang on. So right here again, our colorize. And I could dial that in. A little closer to yours. And then down here, I probably add in a little bit of the ripple coming in here, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
A little bit of that water stuff going on in there. I don't know why I'm dying to see a column in a cave, so you gave me the cave, right?
Hmm.
So all that makes sense. It looks like it did, right?
Yeah.
It's a
It
nice
was really
little
fun.
trick, huh?
It was really fun.
I love the randomness of it. I like taking things and just going, wonder what this will do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's mostly what I was doing, which is why the painting job wasn't complete, but it was mostly just me playing with the
I wasn't
shapes.
expecting you guys to complete that. I just, because we just kind of did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is just, instead of starting with an under Grisaille painting, we're starting with an under Grisaille 3D environment, right?
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
But the process of now going in and adding shapes and carving out shapes and reshaping and or not doing any of that, and then just going in and starting to paint over it with the same thing with sort of our color tools, overlay and all that kind of stuff. It's the same process, okay? Like I was gonna do the one, the
Yeah, it
library
is.
one, I was gonna do it with a 3D tool, but I just decided to do it by hand. Let's see. And I should have like 5 more of these. Okay, that's pretty good. Nathan,
Yes.
no problems?
No, no problems.
Okay, good. That looks good.
Thank you.
Noah, how come I'm looking at a top view? There's Noah. There he is. Page in, I'm also looking at a top view. And another top view. How come I'm looking at all these top views?
What's a top view?
Looking down, straight down at it. Right? So if I have my hand here and the camera's here looking straight down, that's a top view. Right?
Okay.
Page in,
Uh,
you're cutting in and out.
okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh,
There you go.
Hmm?
So did it make sense though? Did the tool make sense to you?
yeah, definitely.
Okay, so, and you know you can rotate it and all that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I don't care if you do a top view, I just want to make sure it's not because you didn't know how to move it or whatever, okay?
Okay.
Where's Brandon at?
Yeah.
Any problems?
I mean, the only problem is that I feel like my laptop has a hard time running 3D, so it
Yeah.
like, takes a long time to move it. So it's
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, this is fine for what I want. I just want to make sure that you understand it. You didn't have any problems with it other than that?
No, just moving. Yeah,
Looks very old school video game, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
Super
literally
Mario.
just typed that, Mike.
Did you?
like a Mario lands.
Yeah, it looks like Mario's going camping, right? Where is the chat?
I think
See what?
Noah has problems with his mic. I had the chat.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to look in chat right now.
Yeah, I was adding to him, and Noah says he thought the top view of his scene looks cool. So I think that
Oh,
was
okay,
his
that's
intention.
That's totally
Mhm.
fine. I just want to make sure that somebody didn't get stuck there. That's all. If you like the top view, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it does tax your computer. It taxes mine. Didn't used to. It didn't used to. I don't know why all of a sudden it does. Maybe they changed something up, and they probably did in 2020 or whenever they did the last release. Because like that lighting thing's weird. I got to figure that out, like why it's doing that. Because it usually lights it really nice and even right when you build the 3D model. So I'll have to find out why it's doing that. There's me as a topographical map.
I turned you into an island.
Is that this one here?
Yeah, that's the top view is the right to left here of the image I used, and then the one up the top of the screen is it on its side and turn it into an island.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's a cool idea. I like that it doesn't look like a face. It just looks like a terrain.
Yeah, but if you turn it and look at top view, that's literally the one in the bottom right corner. That's
That's
the same
cool.
island uncolored. It's just your face.
That's cool.
That was the first one I played with. I'm like, I got to take a screenshot of you and try that, see what happens.
What's
That's
you know,
great.
it's interesting too because you'll see certain things. Like you know what I pull sometimes? I pull look to do this. Like, let's see. You know, like, this kind of stuff, like satellite imagery of like clouds and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
I actually my favorite brush to do those textures with was the cloud brush because it would give such a granular look to it.
do we have a cloud brush?
I have some, but
Oh, okay. But these things work pretty good. Let's see.
I also found if you change the levels so it's not like black to white, if you keep it more like 40% to like 20% or 40 to 60, you get a more even, so it's not so spiky and jagged.
Is that in the 3D tool?
Yeah, like when you're doing the black and white, if you bring down the levels so they're closer to
yeah, that's a
even,
good idea.
so
That's
it's
a
not
good
like
idea.
0 to 100. If they're
Yeah,
closer
yeah.
to like like in the mid-range
I
tone.
rarely ever go to black. I don't go all the way to black.
Yeah, and whites are super tall little peaks. So
Yeah.
if you bring them down a little, it makes it a little more flat and bumpy and textured instead of mountain ranges.
Yeah, and like if I soften these edges, you know, you'll get different. So this one's super spiky. So I'd have to.
Yeah, it's that dark to light ratio. It cranks them up like jagged spires.
Mm-hmm. But it's good once you know all that stuff. You know how to do it. You know how to manipulate it.
Yeah, those can be totally fun too. Like when I did your glasses, I painted them pure white so they
Yeah.
pop up on the island, and like once you start learning that, you can start manipulating and playing with your flat image before you take them 3D.
Another thing you could probably do. I think I have done this. Let's try this. Where did that go? So that was all spiky. Let's try this. Let's really soften this up. Look at the difference.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So that'll help you too with that spiky thing. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble. Oh, I know why. Hang on. There we go. This one's kind of cool, actually.
I was just gonna say that.
If I can get my light back. Oops. There we go. So if I take this now, and I could probably do a nice desert thing with this. If I can dip this stupid. And then relight it. I actually never played with this before. It's something. Yeah, need to relight it. There's no light going.
It's probably under one of your windows. Mine would hide like that all the time.
It's weird. It's not in here. Oh well. I'd have to relight it. I probably have to light over it a little more. It's super weird. Usually it's right here.
Oh, mine was just a dot on the edge. Like it's probably under your layers window or something.
Well, usually there's like 3 or 4 places you can get it. It'll be in here, usually.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I don't see it on your.
Oh, here it is right here. You were right.
Yeah, mine hid all the time. I was like, where the hell did it go?
It's weird. It gives me so much, and then I'll land on it, and all of a sudden it'll light up. So I got to figure out what's going on because I don't usually have any trouble lighting this stuff. Usually super simple to light.
Yeah, I found that too. Sometimes it was just being difficult.
Yeah, it shouldn't do that. So I got to figure out something's going on there with that. I have a feeling it's probably something. In the like preferences basically on it. Anyway. Look at that. But anyway, you can see if you just go in with the blur tool and you blur it, you'll get a lot of much softer edges. That make sense?
Yeah.
And you could also go in just with your blur, this tool here, right here, and just blur where you want to paint, where you want to blur, and leave everything else hard edge, right? That'd be a really good way to build a canyon, because then you could have those hard edge canyons where it goes off, and then softer edges, and get a nice variety of edges on your, because that's what you get in the environment, right? Okay, let me look through here. I want to go over something today. I'm going to start talking about smart objects.
What was that that Google application you were talking about?
SketchUp?
Gotcha. What is that exactly?
Okay, so SketchUp, let me see if I can find it here. I think Google still owns it. I'm not sure. Hang on. Somebody else might have bought it. So this is SketchUp here, right? You there?
Yeah.
What it is it's a real simple 3D program. You can learn it really quickly. I never got good at it because I just didn't delve into it enough, but it's really simple. And like, if you're talking to 3D people, they'll go, oh, SketchUp. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, it's not for the same thing as Maya or ZBrush. I think it would have been really helpful to me, and I should have just learned it back then because it's a really simple tool. It would have been really simple from a product standpoint, from especially with theme park stuff. But I don't think they had it then. No, they didn't have it then. Even doing like things like towers, like food towers or whatever, where you have a volumetric space inside, you can just build that model and then, build your graphics around the model. Everything's going to fit perfectly. You can know exactly how much product, you could go, okay, I need to shrink that box because I need to only hold 6 ounces of product in there. I need to hold 12 ounces in this one. And you can adjust it. You could have done that there because then they'd go like, hey, figure out the volumetric volume of that container you're doing. And I'd go, you're asking the wrong dude, man. And forget math. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And I just go, you got to do that. Yeah, forget it. I go, because I don't have any confidence that that I'm going to be right. But if I did it here, I would have been fine with it, Anyway, like architects use it. So it's you can see what it does here, right?
Yeah.
And then very simple shape building, okay? But you can take this, look, what's really interesting too, I mean, there's a whole bunch of interesting things this does. And you can get pretty nuts with it.
Yeah, definitely.
From a design perspective, right? Let's see if I can. Let's go. Like for this kind of stuff, because I don't need to sit there and render out in some super complex 3D program something like this for a client or to figure out my space. You know what I mean? The nice thing is I've done this a little bit. I couldn't do it now because it's been years. Where I was getting stuff for my studio, and I built just the box, basically the studio, and left one wall off. And then there's a model library that's a free model library that people just model stuff and they throw it up there. So I go, I think I want to get these 2 IKEA bookcase things for this room. I want to know if they fit. I went in there, and I mean, every IKEA thing ever made is modeled in there. So I could just pull it in. It was already to scale, and I go, oh, it fits pretty good in there. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty helpful. Yeah, I'll check it out. Definitely.
Go down the rabbit hole of it so you can see. It's much more of a 3D design tool. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the other thing that's interesting about it, you used to be able to do this. I'm sure you still can. and I think you can get a free version. You used to be able to get a free version of it. You can, like, if you're building a house, you can get, this thing's going to be sitting here in the world, wherever, and you can go get that information from Google Maps, I think, and then you can pop the house right where it's going to sit on that terrain.
Yeah.
And then what's really interesting is you can do, because you can do all these animations in it. You can do an animation because now you know where the house sits. You know you built the house, right? Now you can do a 24-hour lighting thing and see where the sun goes. And all of a sudden you realize, like, man, for 3 hours of the day, I get these super harsh shadows in the living room. That sucks. So we need to maybe turn the angle of the house or whatever it is, right? So you can get all this information about it, and previs, like, where the sun lands, because you've been in a house where the sun blasts into the house at a certain time of day. It's because people didn't know it was going to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
So I mean, and then I used to fiddle around with this thing years ago. It's probably got insane amounts of more stuff in it now. But I think it's worth learning it if you're a designer or whatever, graphic designer or whatever, because it doesn't have a huge learning curve. Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
You're
Thank
not
you.
investing, into Maya and all that stuff,
For sure.
And I just loved it. There's so much stuff I've done over the years where I went, man, I should have used that. That would have just made it so much easier, And part of my career, it didn't exist, so I couldn't have used it. Okay, any other questions on the 3D stuff? Okay. And I need to see the rest of those by tomorrow. When you have 3 days, there's no excuse not to have them all done.
So Mike, we have to show an example of the 3D
Yeah,
stuff.
just anything. I don't really care. I just want to see that you know it.
Okay, I can't do it at all because I can't, it's not letting me, none of the 3D options are showing up, and I've already tried going to preferences. I enabled graphics processor, keeps saying OpenGL drawing, and I
Okay,
can't
so
get anything.
is it a memory thing on your computer?
I mean, maybe it shows a window and it shows like I have 115, so whatever the bar is blue. So is that possible?
Yeah, because I mean, it's not that
Maybe
it's not
I
going
don't
to show up. It's a tool in Photoshop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
It's not
weird.
letting me do anything.
It has its own category in the file menu. So if it's giving you something where it's like, I can't do this or I can't do that, that could be a memory thing.
Right. Okay. It just says that I have to do these things, and I try to do it. How do you do OpenGL drawing? Enable that.
I don't know what OpenGL drawing is. I've seen that before, but I don't know what it is. Does anybody know what that is?
Not I.
Had memory issues too. Yeah, I just gotta get rid of some stuff doing this sometimes.
Let's see what this comes up with. That looks like it's its own thing. I'm not even exactly sure what that is. That's something else. I'm not sure what that is. But it should just be, you have your image, 3D. I don't have an image. 3D, new mesh from layer, depth map, and plane. That should just be it. If it pops up and it says something weird, then I would look and see it, screen grab it for tomorrow. Okay?
Okay.
gotta see that word or that phrase sounds familiar to me though.
Yeah, I've seen that before, like in animation, because whatever, but nothing is coming up to 3D options. It's all gray, like the words, like box,
Do you have your layer selected?
I do. I only have one layer with the brush stuff on it. I have that on there. And then when I click 3D, the only thing highlighted is spherical panorama and get more content. That's the only thing available to me.
Tomorrow, if you still have that problem tomorrow, upload the file. I want to look at it.
Okay, I will. I'll do that.
Because I might be able to reverse engineer it maybe that way.
Okay. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's one more in here. No, there was no room. Oh, okay. Okay, that's John. Okay. All right, so let's start talking about this. I told you guys, like when you go, look, open our Photoshop. And I said when I drag things into Photoshop, actually let's open a window. What it usually does, it turns this, you can see, can you guys see right there, that little icon on my window? Can you see that in the corner?
Yes.
That means it's a smart object, okay? So what that means is it's gonna disable a lot of things, but then there's things we can do with it that are great. But so sometimes you'll try and do something on something you dragged into the window and you'll be like, why isn't it working? Check that, because if it's a smart object, and then again, we talked about this, I right click the bar, go right here to rasterize layer, and then I'll have all, it's a normal layer again, okay? But what we wanna do is we wanna use this, okay? So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna go through this real simply. And then today, I'm gonna link, it's another case where I started making a video for this and I found one that was perfect. But obviously I still wanna go through it in class with you guys, okay? And I'm basically gonna do sort of a simplified version of the same thing I'm gonna send you. So the link I send you to, this guy's gonna take it a lot further, but the whole first part of the video is basically what I'm gonna show you right now, okay?
Sounds good.
Again, I don't want ever, if I use a video that exists, I'm not doing that to get out of going over this. I'm just doing that because I go, oh, I don't have to sit here and spend 3 days making a video. I found a good one, okay? So anyway. And then tomorrow I'm gonna go over some stuff from Frank's class, and I've been looking at how he put his together for his class, and I think his video is fine. I totally don't need to redo it. It's very step-by-step. I just want you guys, anybody can go into animation to look at that. We'll talk about that tomorrow, though. So I'm going to grab a couple of things here. Let's grab this. Let's see this one. All right. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go, hopefully my brain's working right now, so I might have to backtrack here. I'm going to go on the bar, right click, convert to smart object. Okay, now I already separated this, okay, using my object selection tool, so it's probably not a perfect, actually I screwed up, hang on. I'm gonna need, let's see if I can do this. I want to select, I want this to be the whatever you call it, smart object. Oh, it already is a smart object. Okay, so I don't like it doing that. Let's see if I can just let it do it this way. Now I'm going to take this down so I can see the car, okay? And then I'm going to go up here to edit, transform, distort. And I never done it where I let the car or the thing just drop in and create it. So I'm going to do this real half-assed. So I got this pattern on here. And then I'm going to go here to edit, transform, warp. And normally I would take this and I'd sort of warp it around the car so it feels like it's actually wrapping around the car, okay? And that's good enough for this. Now, I'm going to go in here now. I want to get rid of this, I think. And I'm going to go make a layer mask on this. Get my brush. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to paint this out. So I'm painting out all my excess. And there's a couple reasons why are we doing this like this with the layer mask.
Undistracted.
Non-destructive, and I can paint things back in and stuff, okay? So if I'm a little off, or if I decide to change my mind, like I just took the mirror out of it, I don't think the texture should wrap around the mirror or here. I'm gonna go, at some point I'm gonna go to a smaller brush. And let's do this, let's put a gray behind it so I can really see what I'm doing. There, that's better. Oops. Actually, a hard round is probably better for this. Okay, and at some point, I'll just call this a day. You can see the grays giving me what I missed. I missed a lot of it because this wasn't at 100%, and that other brush is sort of a soft brush. I want a harder edge brush here. Now, I don't want the tires to have a pattern on it. Once I get through this, you'll see this is pretty simple. I'm going to drop the opacity down a little more on this. Just want to see the car better. Oops. Okay, we're almost done. Now, I went a little over there, so I'm going to flip my color. Put that back a little bit. And then I'm going to get rid of these areas. I don't want those, like the windows. I don't want it on the mirror. I'll get rid of all those. Almost done. These shouldn't be in there. I'm going to lower the opacity some more on this. All this probably shouldn't have any pattern on it. This. Oops. Okay, so it'll reveal to me where I'm sloppy, like right here, it's really sloppy. Right there. Now, obviously, there's a lot of ways to make changes or selections here, but for this kind of thing, this works pretty good. Okay, so now let's go a little bit here. Okay, good enough. Let's put this back at 100. And then I'm going to go find an overlay that works. And what I'm looking for is something that's going to keep my my shape and my value underneath it. And also, this is telling me I missed this all here. Oops. Yeah. Sloppiness here. Okay. Back here, I'm going to get off my layer mask. I'm going to get back on here. Provides no. The track isn't bad. That's not that bad. Okay. Does that all make sense so far, right? All we've done is we converted this layer to a smart object, and then we just made our selection using a layer mask, okay? Now.
Hey, Mike, quick question.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between leaving it smart and not smart? Will it do something different to it?
Well, what I'm going to show you right now wouldn't.
Okay, okay, sorry. Okay.
So I'm going to click. Nope, that's not what I want. Ooh, did I not convert this to a smart object? Okay, hang on. So I'm going to try it this way. Let me do this because I screwed up. I don't think I can convert it now. That's weird. No, I thought I converted it. All right, so let's do this. Hang on. I'm going to open this. Sorry, it's going to take me a little longer. I screwed up. I don't think I converted it to a smart object. So I'm going to go through this real quick. Let's go. Let's go to, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to convert this. All right. Okay, so there's my little icon. I don't know how I missed that. So let's just go through this real fast again. So I'm going to knock down the opacity so I can see what I'm doing. Go here, and I'll just do it all half-assed, okay, so I do it fast. Distort, I like to start with distort. Get this started. Edit. You know, and I would bow this around and make sure that it was wrapping around my form in a nice way. Good enough. I'm back in here. With the layer mask. And now we're on our smart object. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to get rid of all this other stuff. I'll try and do it quicker. Yeah, that's good. And usually as I'm going through this, you know, I'll start to see places where I missed my layer mask a little bit. Let's go here. A little over there, but I can always paint it back in. And then I'll talk about why this is a good idea. I don't want it on the mirror. Okay. Good enough. All right. So we still have our little smart icon there. That's good because I screwed it up the last one. And I'm going to switch over to here. Put this back at 100. I think the one that worked before was, that one wasn't bad. Let's try multiply is fine. Okay, so now we've just wrapped it. You can see where now it's revealing where I screwed up. So if I go back to my layer mask, I could paint that back on right there. And right here. And right here. Just make sure that I'm nice and clean on there. Okay. So now I'm going to open this other document. So I've opened this Rusty document, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this little icon. And see how it brings up my pattern that I used? Right? So it's holding this information over in the in its own little window, right? It doesn't exist unless you click on it. And then I'm going to take this, oops, this, and I'm going to drop this here. It's on its own layer. I hit save. Come back over here, and now it's taken all the information I did and rewrapped it with the new pattern. Does that make sense?
That's cool.
So you could do this with a character. Like if I get the shirt all right and I warp it out and I go, hey, it's a dorky dad. He could be wearing a plaid shirt. He could be wearing a polka dot shirt. He could be wearing a Jimmy Buffett shirt. He could be wearing an old guy's rule shirt. He could be wearing a blah, 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 you know, and I can just do, or it's the video I'm going to give you, he's doing it with a spaceship, and it gets a little more complicated than this, but basically it's what I just showed you, okay? But he goes further with it. You know, I could give an art director 20 different paint ideas like that, right? So let's do another one here. Let's double click this. And let's pop this one. John would like this car. So let's go.
Ooh, my favorite.
John's always dreamed of owning this car.
Question, Mike?
Yeah.
Do you have to keep the other layers? Like layer 3 is the original one?
No.
Okay.
You mean this here?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think so, no. We'll check here in a minute.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
so look. Boom, now it wrapped it with that. Right? It does other things. I'll talk a little more about, well, maybe we can go for it right now. Hang on. So let's check and see if we can do that. Let's go. Here's our thing. Let's get rid of the original layer. Let's get rid of all these layers except for one. Nope, it's fine.
Okay, cool.
You know, and then, okay, so one of the things the guy does that's really smart in his is he creates a pattern that has reference points in it, okay? So I think he puts numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and he knows, that way he knows where everything sits in that pattern and which way it goes. It'll make sense when you watch it. So it just makes it a little easier for him to place it. Does that make sense?
Is that kind of like the checkerboard in Maya?
Yeah, more or less.
When you're doing,
I
okay.
was thinking the exact same thing, John.
Yeah, more or less. But
Okay,
like,
cool.
if I come here, look, if I go here and I go, you know, I don't know exactly where this is going to fall. So if I go, let's put another layer on now. Let's fill it. Let's go back. So it falls right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, you know, so then I might go, well, what happens if I put it here?
Oh, the hood, maybe.
Right?
Oh, okay.
Let's go there. You know, so I probably have to find it. Whereas if I knew there was some numbers there and I could see it, I could probably just go, oh, it sits right in between the 4 and the 8 or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's too big. So we'd have to go. Let's see where it goes here now. Yeah, it'd have to come down and over. So on and so forth, right? Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
What's nice about it is that once you do this initial selection and then you work things around, like the one the guy does is a spaceship, so it has more of a tubular and then the wings, so things have to sort of wrap around those two ideas, okay? And then he uses it to flip the opposing wing on the other side, so it just automatically goes whoop, and it covers that wing too. So he gets a little more complicated with it. And that's also where his pattern comes in handy because he knows, oh, on the other side it's got to flip. So he can flip it on the other side, okay? Questions?
I just had a question, like, how is it that you are on the layer of the pattern in the red circle and then it just automatically goes on the other one onto the car?
Because I'm clicking here on my smart object icon.
Oh, okay.
So what it's doing is, okay, so
It's replacing.
it's replacing, but it's keeping all that geometry about how I manipulated that image. So I don't have to keep repainting the car over and over,
Right.
which is what I
Okay.
would normally have to do. Now you could do the same thing. I said, like, especially if you had something that had armor or something, like big, you know, armor, and I want to make those rusty, I could just go on and try that. And if the art director goes, I don't like that rusty thing, can you put a pattern on there? And you go right back, go boop, put a pattern on it, go back, there it is, right?
Okay.
Makes it very easy to change. Now, another thing about this, so that makes sense. Everybody understands that, right? It's pretty simple. You right-click it, you convert it to a smart object, then you start doing whatever you want, and it holds the information, is basically what it does, okay? But if I go, another thing, let's go back to our car. Where is it? Okay, so I'm going to grab this car, not this one. Where'd it go? Let's get rid of this. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. What happened? Oh, that's weird. I saved it. I didn't mean to do that. Oh well. So let's go make a new one, new. Okay. Let's take this car. Okay, so one thing, let's do this. Hang on a sec. Let me get rid of this. Do this again. Okay, let's make this. I'm going to save one here. If you go, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, and I don't think they'd change this, so let's check. So there's my car, and I go, I want to make it small. And then I blow it back up. And let's do it again. See how it's getting pixelated?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't go small and then go back up because it goes, no, you told me it's this big now. So now I don't have enough pixels to hold it that big again. But if I come in here, click on the right-click the bar, convert to smart object. Now, when I do that, it didn't pixelate. Okay, so if you're going in here and you're you know, doing a graphic design thing, a layout, a movie poster, whatever, and you're not sure of sizes, you might want to convert them to this so you have a lot of room to play and go smaller to bigger and all that stuff, and you're not going to keep losing resolution. Does that make sense? Now, let's do this. Make some copies. Oops. Here's mine. Let's go double click this. And now I'm going to go And now you see it updated all the copies I made of that. Okay. So if I do something to that, it's going to update all the copies I made of it. Does that make sense?
That's
Let's see if
cool.
you can do it. I'm not sure if you can do it on like one that wasn't the original. Let's see. I bet you can actually. So let's change this. Oh yeah, it does. If you change any of them, it changes all of them. Yeah? Very handy tool, right? Non-destructive. Lets me endlessly reshape, and there's a million other things we can do with this. Resize things, put a pattern on it, a complex pattern over a complex warped surface texture, on and on and on and on. And the video I'm going to link for you guys today. It's a two-part thing. So you can scrub through basically the beginning of it. It's this, unless you want to reiterate it again. But then he pretty quickly goes into a sort of what I just did with the car and then further. Does that make sense? And I think there's some really good information in the way he creates the little pattern, so he has kind of an idea of which way things go and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, because when he flips it, then you got to know the other one, the other wing is the front is butting up against the fuselage, so both of them are butting up against the fuselage the same way. Okay, and he's also using 2 or 3 of these to create something to cover a complex object, because the thing he's going to cover is more complex. Okay, does that make sense? But it's not that complicated, really. Even the video I'm going to send to you, it's really not that complicated. It's basically what I just did. Again, he's just going a little further with it. Yeah? Questions?
So, Mike, let's say you have to, for some reason, rasterize all those layers, and then all of a sudden, yeah, your boss says, "Oh, I changed my mind. Change something about it." Can you convert Can you convert them back to smart objects and then have those layers still be there, or you can't?
No, but
once you go?
what you would do if you go for some reason, I know sometimes that happens, is I would just go up here before I rasterize it, and I'd go save as.
Okay.
I'd give it a new name where I said rasterized version, and then I just have both.
Okay.
Right?
That sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Like if it was something like doing the different patterns on the car, I'd probably like put the pattern on it, export it as another PSD, put the new pattern on it, export it as a PSD, so on and so forth, right? And then I just grab all those, put them back into another document, flatten them all, and I still have my original, but I have ones that I can do a nice layout of. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm always keeping an insurance policy. I never, ever get rid of layers, ever. Right? I never get rid of my layer file. If I need to do something, like if I want to email it to somebody, it's going to be a JPEG probably, right? So I'm just going to save as a JPEG. And I've still got my layered file, right?
Yeah.
And then again, like the only reason I might layer this or rasterize this, actually so if I was doing this with a car, I'd probably, again, save as just another PSD, and then I'd flatten everything and do whatever I got to do with the individual cars, because then I could come in here and go, on my other one, and then go, okay, they're all manipulatable now, and I can just come in here and go, okay, I want to separate this one, and then I could just do a cool layout or whatever if I need to do that, right?
Yeah.
But I've got my original. I would never flatten it without having the original. I'd probably want to rasterize them, though, to your point, to do a cool layout where I have the main one that I think, and then I got, 2 rows of alternate ideas, right? Here's a rusty one. Here's a rusty one with a pattern on it. Here's a super clean one. It's like Wall-E, right?
Yeah.
Wall-E had most of the movie, he's beat up and he's rusty, and then somewhere towards the end of the movie, he gets all cleaned up and he looks brand new again, right? Trust me, somebody did like, who knows how many passes on that to make it, to get the idea right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they probably did it in Photoshop. I don't know. They might have done it whatever they modeled in, but I bet you they did it in Photoshop just because whoever's doing all the modeling and everything's probably got a lot of stuff to do, and they go, just go over here and let's try some different paint jobs on it. Here's the, here's the model, or here's a flat image of it, blah, blah, blah. right? Now, I don't know how they do
Mhm.
it, but, a lot of times people always think everything's done in like the highest in software or whatever. And it's like, no, that's a paint job, man. You can throw that off to somebody else and keep that person working on the 3D stuff or whatever it is they need to be doing, you know, because you don't want, you know, you don't want multiple things on people's plates, especially in something like that. The timelines are probably insane. They're doing R&D at the same time. They're developing it at the same time. They're animating at the same time. They're building the sets at the same time. You know, it's just like, it's a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you probably
Mhm.
want to keep people on target, I would think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, when I had sculptors on my team, I didn't go, hey, you know what? I need some package design over here. Can you get off sculpting? You're never going to do that. Because the person's time's too valuable. Okay. So basically it's creating this little weird space for whatever you declared a smart object so you can keep manipulating it, and it's holding the information of the original thing, whether that's warp texture information, pattern information, overlay information, all that stuff. So you just can quickly cycle through a lot of ideas. Make sense? You could do it with your 3D environment, right? You could go on there and paint all that stuff. You know, just keep swapping out different things. You know, if it was a pattern or even a texture, you might just want to try different textures on there and throw those out there before you go any further, right? Now today I thought I was going to have to go over the 3D stuff with you guys more, but I didn't. So this is the only thing I wanted to go over today because I want you to do this by tomorrow, right? Yeah? I don't care what you do it on. I would say get something, make it easy on yourself and get something that's either a fairly light gray value or a white. And start with that, okay? You don't want to try and go over, whatever you call it. You know, something's dark or whatever, it's going to be hard to work with, okay? You want to try to start with something that's lighter value, gray or whatever. I'm going to post the 2 videos that I want you to look at in relation to this before I probably get this meeting put up, okay? So while that's rendering, I'll put that up. And then I'll put the meeting up in, you know, my usual stuff, the folder, all that stuff. Whoever didn't give me a 3D thing, I want some 3D thing by tomorrow because I want to put that to bed, okay? Because it seems like you guys got it fine. It's fine. Yeah? And then tomorrow, I want to go over whatever's left of the 3D, anything with this smart object. Then I think I know what I'm doing tomorrow anyway. Does that make sense, you guys? We're in the home stretch. We have this week and 3 days of next week.
I was just going to ask that. So it's confirmed next week. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, actually, I have to post my stupid my class schedule up there because they broke up the class schedule in some bizarro way that nobody understands, including me. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, I think they put the lunch
Yeah.
period in there, like what you're supposed to break for lunch or something, or the lab. Yeah, it's weird how they split everything up.
Well, they split it because if you look at it, the way the classes are done in curriculum, it's like 2 hours of lab time and 1 hour of lecture or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
And then it's like, yeah, and then like lunch or whatever. But I have no idea why that was put in the schedule because it really doesn't matter. Why would you not just put 9 o'clock to 3:30? That's the time.
That's how it's always been.
Monday, Wednesday, 9 o'clock to 3:30. And it's just like, okay, so in the middle of a pandemic, when we're all trying to, we're adapting to this online environment for however long that lasts, you throw this weird curveball into the schedule? Because I've had so many students go, wait a minute, is there 2 different classes at 2 different times? Because that's what I would think too. You know what I mean? I'd go, oh, Monday, Wednesday, okay, so one's 11 to 1, and then one's 2 to 4. Okay, so Monday's this time, it's like, I'm just going to post it on my social media stuff and just go, here's the dates of my classes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm excited right now because I finally figured out how I'm going to do this thing for the fall. I want to be able to go from here to the Cintiq, and then I want to be able to go to a live area. So if somebody goes, like in my illustration class, goes, well, how would I do that in watercolor? I can jump over to there and do something in paint or drawing or whatever, or traditional media, just being able to pop over, doing that. And then I'm putting together a mobile rig so I can go out and do stuff on my Wacom. So I'm going to have a lot of tools that's going to make it where I don't feel like I'm missing anything, which is going to be cool. You know what I mean? Somebody wants to do traditional linking in my cartooning class, then I can show them how to do that, as opposed to having it emulated on digital, which is not bad, but you know, I'd rather be able to do it like you want to do this traditional, and here's how you do it. Does that make sense? It's going to cost me about $500, but I think that's reasonable. And then what's good about it is what I'm going to use here when we go back in the classroom. It's going to be a live rig for in the classroom. I'll set it up over my demo table, and everything I demo in class traditionally, I'll have, just like we do here in the Zoom. I think it's very valuable to have all this stuff after the class. So you don't have to take notes. You don't have to retain it. You can go back to it. Does that make sense? And I'll be able to do it with everything, which is, I just think that's exciting. You know, I got to get a C-stand, 2 lights, a new webcam. I think that's it. But anyway, I'm very excited about it. All right, any other questions, you guys?
For people who did already have a 3D environment, do you want us to add on to it, or?
No, you don't have to add on to it. I just want to know you knew how to use it.
Okay.
That's it. I don't, there's really no reason for me to go further down the rabbit hole on that, because if I went down the rabbit hole on it, it would probably be we'd start reshaping it, coloring it. Well, we just did that with
Okay.
with
Yeah.
the environment. Again, the main thing there is quick generation of a environment, and then getting us sort of to the grisaille phase of the painting quickly, the same way we did it with the last one, except again, we're not using a background or a black and white painting. We're using a black and white 3D environment, right? But then we kind of start at the same place. Then you go in and you play with it and add things and build buildings onto it, whatever you want to do, and then start painting it. And then you're just constantly reshaping it, paint over it, going opaque, getting rid of this wall, raising this, doing that, and you just kind of build in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Again, the main thing I think with all these tools, because there's all these cool tools, is not to get into this thing where you're trying to get the software to do everything for you. It's just, to me, it becomes your partner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It starts sort of jamming ideas back and forth with you, and I like that. By the way, I don't know if I said this. If you look up Brian Eno, he does the same thing with music, right? So he's this monster producer. He's worked with, you know, David Bowie, U2, all these huge people, but he's really into technology. And he just does a lot of the same kind of ideas, like in Logic. He uses Logic and, you know, creates like a drum beat, but then like throws things off of it. So it does weird random stuff. And then he starts building stuff around all the random stuff. So it's like having another musician in the room where you're throwing ideas at them and they're throwing ideas back at you. You know what I mean? And I think it's an interesting way. I think that's an interesting way to look at the computer, as opposed to looking at it as in a way of, oh, I plug this in and I get this. Like, I actually don't want that. I want to go, I plug this in and it goes, whoa, look at that. And you go, oh, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Because I can always make it do whatever I want it to do. That's not hard. I want it to give me ideas like another person. You know what I mean? Like another team member. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
I don't know. That just works better for me. I don't want to. And it's funny because I went out painting yesterday and you're sitting there and you're just going, it's the same process. You know what I mean? You're sitting there and you're making shapes, and then you're kind of letting things suggest things, and then you start scumbling your brush in there and you get some nice foliagey kind of looking things, and you're just doing the same thing. You're just going down the rabbit hole, except now that environment out there and your brush is kind of becoming your partner. You know what I mean? That makes sense? I guess that's just a creative process thing, but I think it's important, you know, to develop some sort of creative process. I mean, it's going to be your own, obviously, and maybe you have the exact opposite approach, and that's obviously as valid as anything else. But just think about it, okay? Oh, wait a minute. I got to get a screen grab. Shoot, hang on. I got to unshare my screen. I'm missing somebody today. Oh, so OpenGL is a processing issue? John?
That's what the the Google search I did when I did the same thing you did, but I put Photoshop at the end, and then all these error things came up that said something about GPUs and stuff. So
Yeah, so it might just be processing power.
yeah, it's also an option in preferences, but that I don't know. I didn't go down the rabbit hole. I just put up some links to hopefully.
Yeah, that's
help her.
fine. That tells me it's probably that. Hey, Elan,
Yeah, Mike.
what would have been handy on past digital project?
Oh, the smart object
Oh yeah.
thing where you can resize. I was like, oh, that would have been really handy, so I didn't have to lose resolution when I keep
You know,
resizing stuff.
You know what's funny is I think about these things like when we're doing that, and I go, but it's just not the right spot to drop this into yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like now you guys are just digesting things so fast. You know, it's pretty. You guys are being pretty smooth with it. If I throw that in there too early, and maybe this is just me. If I throw things like smart objects in there too early, to me, it would be confusing. I would look at it and go, I don't get what this thing is. Like when I double click that icon, where does this window exist? Like, where does that exist? You know what I mean? That's where my brain would go. And then you go, well, it doesn't exist anywhere really. It just exists when I open it. Then it exists. The information.
Yeah.
But for me, that when I was learning this stuff, I don't think they didn't have smart objects or anything then. And I think a lot of it's just me, and I tend to just make sure I try and go in a linear way where hopefully everything's making sense. Hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, and then we're building on. I hope. Okay. Who's not having classes in the fall, John?
No, I'm sad I don't have one of yours.
Oh, I'm not doing
that setup sounds cool.
I'm not doing this one in the fall. I don't think. You know what's weird? Go ahead.
I was just referring to your setup. That sounds cool. How you're going to be able to switch back and forth, and it sounds like a cool little deal.
Yeah, I'm super into it. I got to start it now. I'm going to order the C-stand as soon as we're off of here. Then we'll go down and get the webcam. And then I want to order the lights, and then I have to get it. I need to start setting up for fall now, and I need to start doing all my prelim work now. The good thing is I thought we were going to like August 20th, so I'm going to have a few weeks where I can start to get somewhat ahead of, because the fall's going to be brutal. If I'm not ahead of it in fall, it's going to be brutal. You know what I mean? For me.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to be playing like, I'm going to have a class, and I'm like, okay, now here, I got to do a tutorial, I got to do this, I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to front load my library, so I'm not doing that. And some of it's already front loaded because I've been putting stuff in there for years, but and then if I have this live set up, then I won't have to do as many formal tutorials because I'm doing kind of what I'm doing in here, where we're sitting here talking and going through it and all that. Certain things that are big ideas, I'll still do a standalone tutorial for it. But things that are sort of like, oh, you want to know how to on the fly, just like doing things on the fly. I like it when students ask stuff and you go, oh, you want to do ink? Okay, here. You know, here's how you do it. I like being able to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. That sounds very intuitive for what we're dealing with all this stuff.
Yeah, I like intuitive and I like spontaneous and I like just sort of on the fly kind of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, you don't need any more pins to be juggling while you're trying to figure this other crap out too.
It's just like when I was in class, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but there was a lot of I don't know, sort of and all of us do this to a certain extent where you're going, okay, when I demo this, I do it like this. But it always bothered me when it felt very step-by-steppy and I felt like this. And then when I'd go, okay, that's cool, but what if I use some Dorland's wax in that paint, you know? And they'd get all discombobulated. They'd be like, oh, you know, let me go over that next week. And it's like, it's not that big a question, dude. You know what I mean? And it would always bother me that they weren't fluent in their process where they could just jump around. And then I got Gary over at Art Center who was, you know, was the opposite, where you go, Gary, how do you do this? And he'd just go off and he'd show you 100 things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like when we were taking your sketching class, you'd be doing something on the Cintiq, and then you'd be like, oh, well, let me bring over my drawings here and gesso them and show you this. And then, hey, let's look at sketchbooks. And you just had a spot for each of them. So it sounds like that's what you're setting up.
Yeah, my 1028 class, I've got a cabinet in there with like all kinds of material. So if somebody goes, what if I want to do this? You know, I can just go, okay. You know,
yeah, exactly.
Which is, to me, that's super fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes it cool because then you can answer any question no matter what it is.
Yeah, and I don't have to like
show different techniques.
I don't have to overthink it and go, okay, let me put a a presentation together next week, and it's some things you do have to do that, because sometimes the student will throw something at you where they go, hey, look at this technique, I want to do something like that, and you have to look at it and go, okay, I got to reverse engineer that and figure out what they're doing there. And that's kind of fun too, because then you got to go figure out, how did that person do that? You know what I mean? And that's fun for me, because I usually learn something, or you learn some new material, or mixing this material with this material in a way you never thought of. And it's really fun, to keep learning stuff all the time. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'm gonna let you guys go. Go in and do that smart object thing by tomorrow, because I want to have if there's any problems, I want to go over them tomorrow. Yeah?
Sounds good.
Okay, guys, so I'll see you in the morning, and I will put up the links right now.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, I'll talk to you guys in the morning.
Thanks,
Bye,
Mike.
everybody.
Bye.